Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel and welcome to another tier ranking video. Since I honestly really enjoyed doing the Twin Trouble ranking video, which you can go and check out after this video, I thought, you know what, let's do some more ranking videos. And I thought, okay, well, what is something that is a film series and that, could really go and work with a film ranking series. And I thought, hey, why not I go and do a tier ranking of a series that I've already done before? And really, the only two that I've done was the Rambo films and the Star Trek films. Well, and Jaws, but still. Point being, I decided to go with Star Trek for now because there's, I think about 13 films now, as you can see right there. And we're going to be going through all of them from the motion picture all the way up to Star Trek Beyond in 2016. And we're going to be ranking all of them from the start to the finish, and then at the end, we'll give a final overview and see, what the final ranking is. So let's start off with the very first one, Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which came out in 1979. Now, this film is kind of weird. Um, when I first initially saw this, I really did like it. It was a very nice, kind of like a relaxing film. Now that I'm just watching it, it's like, yeah, this film is really trying to copy 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it shows. It's very boring, and really, it's just, a very kind of boring experience. But it did rejuvenate the Star Trek franchise as a whole. That's why we had, such great films later on. So I can't really put it in the bottom. Like, I can't put it at the very bottom because it's like it does mean something, and it does have some very good moments in it, but the rest is very boring. So, like, I think it's nearly an hour into the film that the Enterprise actually leaves to go and fight the main villain, which, by the way, I'll be getting the spoilers for all these films, so there's your warning right now. Um, it's nearly an hour into the film when the Enterprise actually leaves and goes to find V'ger. And, the only real memorable characters in this entire film is the new ones. I think Captain Decker and Aliyah. And they are pretty unceremoniously killed off pretty much right at the end. So you basically just killed the two most interesting characters in the entire movie, and now I just don't really care. It just feels like the whole film was wasted. Um, that being said, it is still a very enjoyable watch. I do go back to this film every once in a while, but it's still very boring. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put this in the D category. It is very boring, with some good moments in it, but it's not the worst Star Trek movie. We'll get to those later. And then we have an immediate step up in quality with Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. Do I really need to say anything about this film? It just goes straight up there, S tier, perfect. Khan, a returning villain from the original series, having one of the best episodes in the original series, and one of the best movies in the Star Trek series. Undoubtedly the best film in the series. So yeah, definitely goes in the S category. By the way, I know I did review all these films very early on in the movie reviews series. I will be doing Redux reviews on all of them since they are only about like 15 minutes each, pretty much. So I will be doing Redux reviews of all of them. So don't worry. Uh, but yeah. But going back to Wrath of Khan, everything pretty much about this film is absolutely perfect. Actually, one thing I didn't mention about the first film is the score by Jerry Goldsmith. Great soundtrack, which honestly is one of the main reasons why I'm able to sit through this entire movie because it's just so fucking good. Same with Wrath of Khan, very good music. Um, so yeah, again, is there really any doubt about this film not being in S category. It deserves the top spot in every single Star Trek ranking. Now we move on to Search for Spock, sorry. And again, kind of like Motion Picture, it is in a weird spot, but more with this one. It's a good Star Trek movie, and yet it's an odd number film, which, if you know the gist, pretty much all of the odd number Star Trek films are pretty much terrible, and all the even number ones are good. You could pretty much say that for at least the first 10. The J.J. Abrams films, you can kind of put them into their like own category on whether or not they're good or not. But pretty much the first 10, you can lump them into, if they're even number movies, they're really good, and if they're odd number movies, they're really kind of bad. Search for Spock is the oddity where it's a really good Star Trek movie. I think the only problem is that it followed Rafa Khan, so it kind of gets taken down a peg. Honestly, really nothing after Rafa Khan could really match it in quality. So it kind of just immediately goes down to A tier, but there are some scenes that, really do kind of bog it down for me. So I'm gonna have to kind of put it in the B category. I'm flip-flopping between either to put it in the A category or the B category. So right now, I'm gonna put it in B. The villain is very good. Christopher Lloyd as Commander Krug, I think his name. This was a year before Back to the Future too, so he's pulling out really good performances before his most iconic role. So I think that's really good. So yeah. But yeah, there's a kind of like a lot to say, but I don't want to spend too much time on it, on all of these. I feel like that right now, like when I'm ranking them, I just want to mention, some of the points that make me put them in the spots that they are. But Search for Spock is a good Star Trek movie. It's just not as good as Rafa Khan. Like honestly, anything that follows Rafa Khan will probably not be as good, like immediately after, so it gets taken down a peg anyway. But there are some scenes that drag, and the ones that can immediately come to mind for me are the Genesis scenes. They really kind of just take the pacing out of the film, and it really kind of does bog it down for me. So that's kind of why I'm putting it in the B category right now. It may change, but that's where I'm putting it right now. Star Trek 4: The Voyage Home. This is a different one in terms of actual Star Trek films, because I think this is the most different out of all of them, even including the reboots. It takes place the majority of the time in the 1980s in San Francisco. So there's a lot of, and this is the majority of the time a comedy, and it actually does work. There are some scenes that do kind of drag for me. I feel like that any time it's for me, honestly, it's any time that's away from Kirk and Spock that it kind of drags for me a bit, because their scenes are honestly so good that most of the scenes with the other crew members are kind of lacking. Dr. Gillian Taylor, I think that's what her name is. She's very good in the film, and she kind of becomes the love interest for Kirk, and is really kind of she's like kind of like she takes no shit from anyone. I will admit though, the fact that the main plot point or the main MacGuffin behind the plot of this film is whales is a bit stupid. But I still enjoy it overall, so I'm gonna have to put this in the A category. It's a very good Star Trek film, and I do enjoy it. Oh boy, Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. I can't lie, this is a bad film, but I enjoy it so much. It's a massive guilty pleasure in my opinion. This film is funny. Not in the same quality as Star Trek 4, where it's actually like actual funny. This is more like it's stupid funny. And I like it for that. And The villain, which is Cyborg, he's enjoyable in this. In fact, one of my favorite scenes in all Star Trek history is from Star Trek V, when they finally meet God, quote unquote, because it really isn't. When they meet God, and Kirk is like, "Excuse me, I just like to ask a question. What does God need with the starship?" And it's like that scene is honestly every single time I laugh, I chuckle a bit because it's actually really funny. Uh, but I can't lie and say that this is not a thing. I can't lie and say, oh yeah, this is actually really good. It's not. It's really bad. So I'm gonna have to put this in the D category. Um, I guess technically lower because from a filmmaking standpoint, yeah, it's garbage. But I kind of do slightly prefer it over. It's kind of like it's a tie for me really between these two. Uh, it's like one is like boring entertaining, and the other one's funny entertaining. So I don't really know. Uh, so yeah, these two are a tie for me. Now we move on to Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. This is another really good movie. They what they did is that they pulled a Star Trek 2 and went from like kind of like a quote unquote bad Star Trek movie and made a really good one, which is not it's not surprising considering the fact that Nicholas Meyer, who directed 2, came back and directed the sequel came back and directed 6. So it has that kind of same quality and um the villain uh uh fuck, I'm forgetting the name. I'm forgetting the character's name, but Christopher Plummer. Oh my god, he is so good in this movie, and um, it's a really good Star Trek movie. I could easily say that I can if I'm ever gonna do a Star Trek marathon of like the best Star Trek films, I could easily do this 2, then 6, and then one more, which we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, really good Star Trek movie. Definitely belongs in the S category. Then we move on to Star Trek Generations. Again, another kind of uh, tough pick on where to put this. Um, it's obviously the mixture, the passing of the torch between the original cast to the Next Generation cast. Um, but this film is just so weird and complicated and filled, and I mean filled with plot holes. Like you can literally make an entire video essay just talking about the plot holes in this film. And like, it's just really, really weird with how like weird this film is. But it is enjoyable. All the scenes with Kirk and Picard talking together, like having conversations with each other, they're great. Which is it kind of disappoints me that Kirk never appeared in the actual Next Generation show. We had McCoy, we had Scotty, and Leonard Nimoy. Or we had Spock on there too. It's really a shame that they never got Kirk on the show, which is really kind of disappointing. But for the film, for Generations, it works, and but there's so many weird moments and plot holes in this movie that I can't, you know, discourage them from that. But it is still a good movie, so I'm putting it in the C category. It's not as bad as the motion picture or Final Frontier, but it can't really compete itself between 3 and 4. So it kind of belongs right in the middle in the C category. Then we move on to First Contact, and then another step up. I can easily say, without a doubt, this is my favorite film in the Next Generation set of films, which are 4. Definitely belongs in the S category. Um, we have the crew of the Enterprise E, because actually I forgot to mention this in Generations. Uh, my favorite scene is actually the Enterprise D crashing. It's very well shot. The scene itself is fantastic. Um, it's just very well done overall. But the Enterprise E, I'm sorry for people who love the D love the Enterprise D. I I like the Enterprise D, but the Enterprise E looks so much better. Um, and just the acting overall, the plot overall is very good. And just overall, as a film, it's way better than Generations. And it just deserves, again, the S category. And unfortunately, it's probably going to be the last S tier film in, you know, for the Star Trek films, because the rest of these are either just shit or okay. Perfect example, going on to the next film, Star Trek Insurrection. This is ass. Like, and this is not even like a good kind of shit where it's like Star Trek 5, where it's like it's a guilty pleasure kind of bad. This is just straight up terrible. This is like, whereas I feel like that I always make this comparison between Star Trek 5 and Star Trek Insurrection. Star Trek 5 is a bad TV episode that's actually like kind of fun. It's so bad it's good, you know. So I can enjoy watching this over and over again for how bad it is. Star Trek Insurrection is just a boring, bad television episode. None of the characters, like, yeah, Picard is interesting, but that's really about it. Um, like all the new characters, like all like the Baku, they are bland as hell. They have nothing to do except for run around. Like they do absolutely nothing. And the villain is just so one-dimensional. It's just stupid how one-dimensional this guy is. The villain is. And it honestly just it's just infuriating how bad this movie is. So it well deserves the D category. It's just it just hurts my brain just to try and talk about this film because it's just so bad. Anyway, let's move on to the final Next Generation movie, Star Trek Nemesis. Again, kind of a weird spot with this film. It's not as bad as any of these films right here, but it's not as good as any of these ones. So it's like I kind of have to put it in the same tier as Generations. It's just a C film. Picard, the villain for this film is actually interesting. A younger clone, a clone of Picard that is younger, and it has like Romulan DNA inside of him. That's clever, and I think it's Tom Hardy who plays him. He does a really good job with it, and I think it's Ron Perlman who plays his kind of like his sidekick, not sidekick, like his second in command. He's really good too. Um, but it's just kind of boring and just weird, and it's just like I don't really know. I don't really know how to describe this film because it's like it's on one hand it's not as bad as any of these films down here, but it's not as good as any of these films up here. And it's kind of worse than Generations. It's just kind of a weird Star Trek movie. I think this is so far. I think it's certainly one of the darkest Star Trek films. Like along with Wrath of Khan and First Contact, it's definitely one of the more darker kind of Star Trek films. But it's not executed well. That's the best way I can describe it. It's a plot that could have been good, and yet was just not executed well. So it kind of just deserves the C category. It's a very low C category. Then we go on to the J.J. Abrams series. So we're going to start off with Star Trek 2009. This was a good film. I liked it. It's kind of weird. The lens flare, I don't really like it, and how they kind of just shove it in your face. I don't really like it, and we'll talk about more about lens flare when we get onto this piece of shit. But overall, I think it's a good kind of reboot of the franchise. Chris Pine, really all the actors that they got to play as the original characters are kind of good, and I do like it for that. So I'm gonna put this in the B category. So yeah. Now we have Star Trek Into Darkness. I don't like this movie at all. No, I will be honest. None of this movie I like. It it's just like it's just filled, kind of like with Generations. It's filled with plot holes, but they just hurt your brain when you're trying to figure them out, like why, like trying to make sense of it. And it's just so stupid and dumb, and it's just uh Benedict Cumberbatch, I will admit, makes a good villain, but only 2 films into the the reboot, and you're already introduced one of the most iconic Star Trek villains ever, and you just shit on his character so much, and it just hurts just to watch this movie, just of how poorly and shit they executed it. This is by far my least favorite Star Trek movie, and I thought that Insurrection was bad. And then I actually watched Into Darkness, and it's just boring and bad and stupid. I just hate this film. Ugh. But at least we can go out on a high note, somewhat, with Star Trek Beyond. This is a good film. I like it. Um, Unfortunately, this is technically the last Star Trek film that we have right now, because I think as of now the Kelvin timeline is put on hold because I think either Chris Pine was either fired from it or he left because of a payment dispute, and so I don't think we're gonna be getting any more of the JJ of any of the reboots anymore. So it's kind of been the films themselves have been put on hold while the show has been, which shows I should say, have been continuing on, for better or for worse. Um, but yeah. So, but yeah, this is a good way to end it off. So I'm gonna put this in the A category. So, there could be some changes. I'm thinking of one and only one really, and that's this guy right here. But we'll get to that. So let's go from the bottom to the top of my current rankings and discuss why I put them in their respective places. So in dead last, we have Star Trek Into Darkness. As I mentioned already, this film is just bad overall. None of the characters are likable. They do stupid ass shit throughout the movie, and like stupid decisions, and then they just cause stupid scenes to happen, and it just pisses me off. And the amount of plot holes that are in this film are worse than Generations, and those were honestly kind of bad in themselves. So this film just shit overall, and it honestly deserves to be the bottom Star Trek film. Not that far behind it, in 12th place, is Star Trek Insurrection. This film is just boring and bad, and I just don't like watching it at all. The CGI for the ships is just ass. Um, I don't think they had ILM to do it, and it's just ass overall. The CGI in the film is straight up garbage. The characters are not even likable, and it's just dumb overall. So, yeah, number 12 is Star Trek Insurrection. Number 11, we have Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. Even though I personally do enjoy this film as a guilty pleasure, I can't deny and say that this is a bad Star Trek movie, because it is. It it makes really no sense at all. Uh, the characters are just kind of dumb, and honestly, the original script in certain moments was even worse because apparently the entire crew except for Kirk was supposed to be under Cybuck's control. Even Spock and McCoy were supposed to turn on Kirk. But thank God the 2 actors, Leonard Nimoy and DeForest Kelly, said no to that. And so now it was just the trio of Kirk, Spock, and Bones versus the entire crew. But that doesn't really help it. There are so many scenes throughout this and that just make no sense at all. The God planet is stupid. The God, quote unquote, God himself, it just makes no sense why he would be on a planet and not, wandering the universe. And yeah, it's just overall a bad film, but I can enjoy watching this. In 10th place is Star Trek: The Motion Picture. It's boring, but there are some enjoyable moments in it. Like when the Enterprise leaves space dock, that's a really cool scene. Um, when the Enterprise gets trapped in that kind of warp field and they're about to like blow up from an asteroid, that's a really cool scene. And that's honestly all I can think of at the top of my head. But it's not a bad. It kind of is a bad Star Trek movie. It's just more just boring, and the score is absolutely fantastic. So that's why it's not lower than 5 in my opinion, which also has a great soundtrack. In ninth place, we have Star Trek Nemesis. Um, Again, it's a weird movie. Um, it's just like it goes from like them, you know, going to Romulus to go like make some negotiations with the Romulans, to driving around on a desert planet to find another uh ditched brother of Data. And I will admit though, when Data sacrifices himself at the end, it was emotional a bit. I will admit that right now. But overall, it's just a weird movie, and it kind of deserves the bottom, near the bottom of the rankings. In eighth place, we have Star Trek Generations. Again, kind of a weird movie, but I actually do kind of like this movie. I don't know. I think I did mention this in the original review, but when I was doing the actual reviews for initially for all the Star Trek films, Generations was actually the only one that I hadn't seen up until that point. Uh, Fully. I've seen clips from it, obviously, but I haven't actually watched the entire film until I did the review on it. Damn, like 2 years ago now. Um, and when I first watched it, I quite liked it, but now going back into it, obviously there are just so many plot holes that make absolutely no sense and kind of just deserve to be, um, you know, picked apart. Uh, and honestly, they kind of used all the original series cast, poorly, except for Kirk, because he's kind of like the spotlight of the series, and yeah. But yeah, eighth place is Generations. In seventh place, we have Star Trek, 2009. A really solid reboot of the series of the franchise, but still not, it's a good Star Trek movie, but I wouldn't place it in like the high tiers. Um, but yeah, so yeah, seventh place is Star Trek 2009. In sixth place, we have Star Trek Beyond. Again, another kind of like a good Star Trek movie. I kind of put this slightly above 2009 because they're not so like I guess immature as in the 2009 one. They have matured a lot since then and have are make kind of like more wise choices. Um, and like are just more well-rounded characters in this compared to Into Darkness and the 2009 one. So yeah. Sixth place is Star Trek Beyond. At number 5, we have Star Trek 4: The Voyage Home. Um, a solid Star Trek movie. I could easily like out of all of them, if I choose one to rewatch like on a Sunday afternoon, this is probably the one I would choose. Uh, like just for like a casual Star Trek movie, this would be the one I would put on because it not saying this is a bad thing towards this movie, but this is this feels the least like a Star Trek movie, and it kind of works in its favor. Uh, it being set in 1986 San Francisco, kind of does work in its favor, and I really do like this film for being kind of different compared to all the other ones, and I think, uh, in terms of box office, I think this is the most successful out of all of them. I think maybe beaten by the 2009 one, maybe. Don't quote me on that. Uh, but yeah, I think this is still the most successful Star Trek movie. And at number 4, we have Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock. Yes, I did move it up from the B tier because it it is still I think it's still better than Star Trek 4 and Beyond. Certainly better than the 2009 one. Uh, I think the only problem was that it followed Star Trek 2, which was a masterpiece in itself. That it kind of just dials down, what this film could have been. I feel like if this film came like a few films after, this would have been like a probably like an S tier. Um, but it kind of does get like dialed down a couple spots because it follows such a masterpiece such as Wrath of Khan. So yeah, um, but yeah, no, it's still a very good Star Trek movie. Kruge, a very good villain. All the characters are used very well and very sparingly. Used properly, and you know, I heard critics complain that why are they looking for him this entire movie, and then like why did Spock only really appear in the end of the end of the at the end of the movie, when it's like the name is called Search for Spock. Why would they find him within the first 10 minutes? Then what would happen for the next like hour and a half? Like what the fuck. Um, but yeah, Star Trek 3: The Search for Spock is at number 4. At number 3 is Star Trek 6: The Undiscovered Country. Another very solid Star Trek movie, and my second favorite TOS Star Trek film ever. It's a very well-rounded film, a great way to cap off the original series cast, and to give them a loving send-off. Which, by the way, that ending scene always makes me tear up a very tiny bit every single time I watch it, because it's like I know it's the last real adventure that they all have, and it's like it's just sad to think about. But yeah, you know, it's still a very good Star Trek movie overall. The fact that it kind of does tie in a bit with the with real world aspects, like with the end of the Cold War and the falling of the wall in Russia. Um, you know, it does work as like what if this happened in the Star Trek universe, and it works very well. So yeah, at number 3 is Star Trek 6: The Undiscovered Country. Uh, at number 2 is Star Trek First Contact. Yes, I did obviously move Star Trek 6 behind it because it is a near masterpiece of a film, and really does deserve the second place spot. And it is the best TNG Star Trek movie ever. Um, it's kind of weird that throughout the course of the TNG movies, we had D Space Nine begin and end, and I think Voyager begin and end as well, because I think D Space Nine started in '93 and ended in '99, and then Voyager started in '95 and ended in like 2001. So a year before Nemesis came out, but it's point being, anyways, get back to First Contact. Anyway, it's still a very good Star Trek movie. The reintroduction, like a film about the Borg as the main antagonist is fucking awesome. Picard and Data have way more to do. Are like basically the main characters in the entire movie, and it really does work. And I don't know really what else to say in such like a short span of time. Um, without going super into depth and making this over like 2 hours long. So yeah, I if I had to recommend any of these Star Trek films, it would honestly be like these top 3 right here. So, but yeah, but obviously there can only be one true Star Trek movie. There can only be one first place winner, and it obviously has to go to Galaxy Quest. No, just kidding. Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan. Obviously, it's a masterpiece of a film. Uh, obviously Nicholas Meyer does a very good job with directing Star Trek films, as it clearly is obvious by the fact that both of his Star Trek films are S tiers. Um, and I don't know really what else to say in such a short amount of time that hasn't already been said. It's a masterpiece of a film, and I do recommend everyone to watch it at least once. It's a it's a perfect film, and is certainly in my top 10 favorite films of all time. It's maybe even in my top 5. No, actually no, it is certainly in my top 5 favorite films of all time. And so yeah, that pretty much does it for this ranking video. Um, so like I said at the beginning of this video, I will be doing Redux reviews of all of the Star Trek films, including Galaxy Quest. When exactly, I do not really know. Uh, because I don't know if you guys saw the channel update video yet. Um, but I already have pretty much the rest of the schedule planned out for season 5 already. So it may be a season 6, uh, concept, maybe. I don't really know. But, um, so, yeah. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and, you could actually probably go and check out this, ranking here on tiermaker.com. Uh, that's where I pretty much post all of these tier ranking videos at. It's a very good website to go and do your own tier ranking videos at on pretty much whatever topic you want to. So go and check them out. And as I always do, check out my social media pages at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Also follow me on Twitch because I'm going to be doing some live streams. I've been getting back more into live streams recently, so go and follow me on there. And uh, yeah, that's pretty much all I have for right now. So, thanks guys for watching this, and stay tuned for the next video, whatever that may be, which will probably be the Rocket Man review. Uh, but yeah, stay tuned for that, guys. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for the next video. Live long and prosper. Out.